Hidden amongst nature preserves and gorgeous woodlands that encompass surrounding waterways and wildlife, within a small town is where you can find Middletown, Ohio. The former Poastown Elementary School stands in all its former glory, even though time has truly passed on here. The school shows a history in which it tries to salvage and show off for future generations. Other historically valued occurrences took place in this area, leaving Middletown synonymous with tragedy rather than just an abandoned school. Rumors abound that these tragedies compiled and built upon each other on the ground of the school, leaving behind an ungodly amount of energy from death and despair to the happiness and pure electricity of a public school with children that congregated and learned there. Not only the owner, volunteers, and guests have encountered strange happenings here, but the owner has opened its doors to paranormal research groups to have more professional opinions and utilize their tools and techniques. Thanks to these groups, a plethora of experiences and theories have built up over time, leaving everyone who visits the building with a fresh perspective and allowing the building to grow and build its ever-growing legend of the Poastown Elementary. The elementary school itself holds quite a history, from its founding to its demise. Thousands of children pass through its doors, but perhaps the more intriguing aspect of the school is its property. Encompassing approximately a mile radius includes a haunting history of tragedy, death, and despair. 2 major train accidents occurred in this vicinity, as well as one deadly and horrific flood. All 3 of these incidents devastated the area, but combined, they left such a sour taste in most locals' and visitors' physiques. The first train accident occurred in July of 1891, following a company picnic for the National Cash Register. A passenger train holding a plethora of families collided with a freight train as they were headed toward Dayton, Ohio. This tragic event caused the death of 4 people and severe injuries to an additional 50. The second train accident in the area occurred less than 20 years later, in another July, this one of 1910. This incident was due to the engineer of a passenger train disregarding his schedule following a track detour. Another freight train collided with this passenger train after this simple misinterpretation of the schedule. After the collision, the 2 passenger cars closest to the engine were decimated. There were a total of 19 deaths and many others who were severely injured, some fatal in the long term, leading to another 17 deaths. The location of the current school was created to be a makeshift field hospital, as there were no hospitals nearby. Even though the relief trains were dispatched and doctors from nearby converged on the area, the death toll climbed to 36 total, many of whom perished on the school's site. Only 3 years following the train accident in 1913, a massive flood destroyed the area, laying waste to mass amounts of homes and businesses. The flood led to 6 people drowning outside the small town of Middletown. Following the trio of tragedies, the area opened the Middletown Regional Hospital to help prevent the makeshift hospitals, which led to countless people suffering and ultimately dying. The school itself was officially opened in 1937, replacing the original one-room schoolhouse, which was the only school even remotely nearby. While the school graduated countless students, it ultimately had its peak time pass by due to technology and a dwindling population. The elementary school slowly moved its students out to various locations during the late 1990s and finally closed its doors in 2000. Not long after, banks foreclosed and the county just wanted to rid itself of the property, selling the abandoned building to a married couple of Brenda and Darrell Wiseman in 2004 for $189,000. Truthfully, only a portion of what it was worth, although the building was and still is in need of many upgrades and repairs. The pair tried to bring the building up to code, but with the immense amount of work and limited money and supplies, they filed for bankruptcy and reconsidered the school. The couple took a step back and decided to create a new business plan. They opened their doors to many groups to make use of the empty rooms at their leisure for their particular needs. These rooms have been temporarily transitioned into businesses like a nail salon, a weightlifting gym, and a massage therapist. However, some other groups have come in looking for disrepair and abandoned rooms to train for catastrophes and disasters. Police and fire training exercises have found regular homes here, rotating out on a normal basis. A fallout shelter for the community was established here, and other locations have been left to be used for survivalist groups and training exercises to prepare for the unknown in a wide array of apocalyptic scenarios. Above all of these normal professions are the vast numbers of paranormal investigators who spend time in the old building in hopes of contacting the dead and lost energies inside the school. As strange and possibly unbelievable as this seems, there have been a plethora of teams who have recorded excellent and unexplainable phenomena all around the old Poastown Elementary School. Simply entering the property, the air seems to feel heavy, and an unknown sixth sense of someone watching every visitor with a watchful eye every moment of their stay. Voices have been recorded quite regularly, that of a young girl. She has been highly active with sounds of giggling, whistling, and even intelligent conversation. Unfortunately, her name has never been revealed. In the sleeping quarters, some guests, including the owners, have experienced the sensation of being tugged and pulled. A security system caught this motion on many occasions, as an unseen force has yanked seemingly unwelcome guests out of their bed and slumber. Throughout the upper floors, there have been strange phantom noises like footsteps, dragging noises, and echoing bangs and clangs. This includes classrooms, hallways, bathrooms. The owners, alongside their friends and co-workers during construction, experienced many of these very unnerving events. They originally thought there were animals throughout the building, but it was closed tight, and numerous people experienced these all too similar experiences, which pointed towards some otherworldly activity. These events continued to the extent that they contacted a local paranormal team to investigate and ensure that they weren't too crazy. The local team experienced these somewhat cliché events, but they also captured full-figured shadow figures, poltergeist activity of items moving on their own, and what seemed like animals scampering across the second floor on all fours. After one of these instances, the group mentioned they thought it was an animal running around and captured a clear EVP, saying that Russ will eat it. This voice has been traced to an older man, and with that EVP, he has been named Russ. He's been heard all over the building, sometimes welcoming, other times foreboding. Much like everyone else, he seems to get into moods and comes out to speak only when he connects with someone in particular. With over 100 paranormal groups that have investigated the old school, there have been a variety of theories as to the otherworldly activity. The two prominent claims are that of the disastrous accidents whose victims were brought to the school grounds only to suffer and die, and the other of the children returning to one of the locations where they were most fond of during their lifetime. These theories seem to be on opposite ends of the spectrum, but aside from the grumpy old man, most of the evidence is that of children who are laughing and playing. Most of those who have had paranormal experiences within the school tend to lean toward the latter explanation, especially due to the lack of harmful energy and generally warm and welcoming feeling. The worst activity that had gone on record is a paranormal team member being forced to leave after being made to feel extremely nauseous. Regardless of the true reasoning of the haunting, it's clear that there is something extraordinary left here that likes to make itself known to visitors. The energy and activity are so strong and evident that even the most skeptical of visitors tend to leave with a brand new perspective and their own paranormal experiences. Whether the spirits of the past or those of happiness of children or tragedy of disaster victims, the Poastown Elementary School is a hotbed of energy and seems to be a beacon for those in the afterlife. As we complete our review and breakdown of everything we captured from the night of April 1st, 2023 spent at the Poastown Elementary School in Middletown, Ohio, we have not only personal experiences to consider, but also recordings, videos, and photographs. This combination has helped lead us to the conclusion that the Poastown Elementary School is host to a few different energies throughout the entire building, including a few specific locations inside that each feature a different characteristic. Many of the tales and myths surrounding the building appear to be just that, stories. What we did find out, though, is that there seem to be a few that hold true and that our evidence can back up the paranormal activity inside this former school. As we arrived and began to haul in our equipment out from the cold, we took in the entire building. After meeting the owner, Daryl, we began our tour of the building thanks to the volunteering local team of POV Paranormal. We were lucky enough to be able to hear not only the basic history tour, but also their unbiased opinion and experiences. POV Paranormal were also nice enough to share their previously debunked locations and share some of their past tales with us in hopes of being able to build upon their evidence. During this walkthrough, we recorded the entirety of the stories, facts, and legends of the building. Upon a review, we did not capture anything out of the ordinary, aside from what sounded like a puff of breath, but it was nearly impossible to place any claim of paranormality due to the sheer amount of people gathered in the hallway at the time. Even before we managed to set up and begin our investigation, we had begun to receive some strange communication between pendulums and walkie-talkies. Once we began recording and shooting some footage, this communication seemed to stop. After we settled and rest ourselves, we simply tried to make whoever seemed to be with us more comfortable and officially made our acquaintance. This did not lead to communication, but it did provide us with a loud knocking noise coming from either the hallway or the wall behind us. We were unable to track this down, nor were we able to debunk this.
So if there's anybody in this room with us, could you do something simple like make a noise, knock on something, kick something, whistle? Can you do something?
As we truly begin our investigation here, we seem to gather a slew of activity that made it difficult to pinpoint just one or even two main sources. Our activity began with simple bangs and knocking noises, which we originally chalked up to old building and mechanical noises, but these didn't seem to match up with any of the known sounds they'd made.
We understand there may be people in this room besides Mrs. Johnson. Maybe tied to the train accidents that happened.
Following these moments, early on we experienced REM pod activity as it was set up in the doorway. It appeared as though someone may have been peering in on us. This led to more shuffling sounds which ultimately charged, unseen, at Derek. Fortunately, we snapped a few pictures as this occurred, and we appeared to capture this phantom energy in our pictures. We determined that there was someone watching us from the hallway and either didn't want us to move toward it down the hall or keep us in that room. Our next step was to attempt verbal communication. This occurred through a phasma box. This gave us an odd combination of intelligent and residual communication. We did seem to record some conversations almost between multiple unseen forces, and even recorded a phantom train whistle. This culminated in some off-putting phrases of wake up and first aid.
Do you guys think it's going for two?
I think it's reasonable.
More than likely being associated with some type of past energy from any of the train accidents. At the same time, all throughout our time here, our flashlights would turn on and off, as if giving us intelligent responses to yes and no questions. Our verbal responses ultimately led us to believe that there was a young girl who was intrigued by the lights and just wanted to play. During this time frame, footsteps and banging noises continued to echo from the outside hallway. More unknown entities seemed to step forward and even give names at this time. The names of Drew and Peter were both heard.
Is there somebody named Drew with us? Maybe Andrew? Drew? Are you somebody that was working on the train?
Not much came of these, nor do we know of a Drew associated with the building, but the name Peter did strike a chord. Peter Jennings was the name of one of the engineers who was injured during the incidents, but more interestingly, the engineer of Peter Slants was a conductor of the passenger train who was found guilty of gross negligence, and even was once said to be part of an attempt to illegally stop the train for malicious reasons. This name was not indicated at any other time of the night, nor was it indicated who this Peter was in relation to the property. We also tied this together with words stated by the same voice of accountable and conductor.
Can you tell us your name? We want to know who we're speaking with. I talk too much. You're laughing.
As if all of this was pointed toward Peter, either being with us or being blamed unjustly for the train accident. With all of the electrical interference in this room, as it appeared to be a utility hub for at least a portion of the building, we could not utilize many of our tools as the EMF would be too sporadic and interfered with in most cases. At the very beginning of our time here, a loud banging noise was heard. The three of us present all heard it, and we even radioed to the group on the top floor to check and see if they had moved something, but they were not to blame. Strangely, they didn't even hear the sound. Even stranger, neither our recordings nor our videos captured this very loud bang. Aside from this occurrence, our communication and evidence was minimal, if not non-existent. What we did record and experience were phantom footsteps out in the hallway, as if someone was pacing back and forth with us inside that room, as if nervous.
Who made that noise outside? Can you please come in here and talk with us?
It's also possible that this was a distraction technique, and this did in fact work at one point, as we did try to follow the sound, but to no avail. Early on, even before we managed to run our camera and recorders, our paralight began to be alerted. Even though this area is difficult to get readings being so close to an electrical panel, our paralight was able to be calibrated to the energy field and pulled away from the area in question. This seemed to be in reaction to simple yes or no questions, asking if someone was with us, or if their name was AMOS, as if confirming his presence. During this time, we trained our laser grid paired up with a stationary camera in the opposite direction we were giving our attention. This did help confirm some of the shuffling noises and footsteps we heard in person. After we were convinced that there was someone with us, we opted to rely on our spirit box for further communication, which it did provide. We do believe that we made contact with Amos, who initially told us his name.
If that was you trying to say something, can you say it very louder and more clearly?
But seemed to grow annoyed and frustrated with our endless stream of questions. At first, we were given answers to questions like his favorite beer, which was Miller Lite.
Is Miller Lite your favorite beer?
And if the chair that we were observing did in fact belong to him. He says yes.
Whose chair is this over here?
Ultimately, we heard some words like go and bye, which slightly pushed us out the room onto our next location.
We want to pop through it, but you're not able.
This area first called our attention to the principal's office and its associated back room. We are unsure why, but there just seemed to be a strange draw to it. During our time here, we did feel that familiar sensation of anxiety and the reported feeling of being watched from a distance. Aside from those feelings, we did not incur much evidence or experiences here, but rather were distracted and pulled out of the room toward the hallway. This first began with a lighting up of our flashlight, which is placed just outside the kindergarten room prior to our interactions. From here, our group split. Half of our group headed down the hallway, where footsteps were being heard. The second half went into the kindergarten room, where some flashlight communication was experienced. The most activity we received ultimately came from the end of the hallway, as shadows were being spotted moving but more predominant, and captured as evidence, were the shuffling of footsteps and odd knocking noises. One of these noises seemed to come from nowhere, right next to us, as we were sitting in the middle of the hallway. This again led us to believe that we were being followed and watched from a safe distance. We made multiple attempts to communicate with, hopefully, Sarah in this area, the little girl. Unfortunately, we did not have any success in communication with her, but we did get a very sad, emotional connection, as if we could pick up on this negativity which occurred here so long ago. To our surprise, when we left a recorder just rolling statically, we did manage to pick up some odd noises, which we could best make out as breathing and a similar, but definitely separate sound of shuffling feet. To note, in this time frame, there were only 3 of us remaining on site, and we were all together in the break room. Included in this conclusion are our personal experiences which helped guide us into creating this opinion. The most predominant and shared experience is the sensation of being followed and watched no matter where we were or where we spent our time. This paired up with our recorded evidence as well as some of the paranormal tales. This mainly occurred in the hallways, everyone we ventured down, no matter in a group or individual. Another action was a moment when one of us was rushed in the hallway just outside the main teacher room. This occurred just as we heard footsteps in that area. This experience could not be thoroughly documented, although there were a few images that we associated with it. We were also able to detect a changing of atmospheres, mainly different in the basement and Sarah's stairwell. On a different note, the captured evidence backed up by these physical experiences and feelings as well helped confirm some of the stories shared with us from POV Paranormal. Our evidence provided a few different telling features of these energies. The first helped to back up the claims of someone watching from a distance. The sounds of footsteps and shuffling of feet, plus the visual photographs as if we were rushed from the principal's room hallway, helped add to this theory. The basement seemed to hold a heavy atmosphere, much different from the rest of the building. But as we attempted to pursue communication in this area, we did feel as though we made contact with the spirit of Amos, the former janitor. He did not seem to want company of any sort, as we were ultimately instructed to leave by a seemingly irritable voice. The main teacher room appeared to hold a slew of different energies and paranormal activity. We do believe that we communicated with a child, unknown name, but who only wanted to play with the tools and not necessarily answer questions. There is a high possibility that we also captured some type of residual activity here, as we recorded some actions which would have occurred during the train accidents, as well as names associated with both of those accidents. We can positively conclude that there is a high level of energy left inside the Poastown Elementary, and more than likely all across the property. The collective of evidence gathered and physical interactions with the group and individual experiences have helped us corroborate stories of the old school that have been compiled over time and even add to some of the paranormal phenomena. Through these instances, we have been able to confirm the energies who are said to remain here in the afterlife, and even verify some of the overarching sensations of being watched and followed all throughout the building. With only one night of research, gathering evidence, and debunking false readings, we feel as though there is plenty more ground to cover and even more truths to unlock. Our intention is to help add to and grow the documented paranormal experiences which occur at the Poastown Elementary School. The hope would be for other like-minded groups, much like the POV Paranormal group, to pick up where we left off and build off of our documented phenomena. The long-term goal would be to be able to paint a more clear picture of whose energy is left here and continue to document the combination of residual and intelligent communication and hauntings with a mind to find the truth buried inside the halls of the Poastown Historic Elementary School in Middletown, Ohio.